Hi guys, welcome to this session in Microsoft Excel. In this module, I want to have a look at the if statement, the ifs statement, and if and statements. So first of all, a basic if statement. So I have a table here where I'll just highlight these. I've called this list sales. This list is called bonus, and I've used those names in my formula, as you can see there. So the basic if statement has three elements to it. It has a test, which in this case is if sales is greater than 21,000, then there's a comma. Then there is a part of the if statement which is true. So if that is true, this next bit is the true part, sales times 10%. So if the sales figure is over 21,000, you want to give them 10% of it as a bonus. So this particular one, it isn't, so it's got 0 there. Because that's the last part of this if statement. There's another comma there, look, and then you've got a 0. Now if I click on this one below, this is true, so the sales figure is greater than 21,000. So get 10% of that figure, which is 3,400. There you go. And again, these two are false, and then this one is true. So that's an if statement in its basic form, using named ranges. So to name these, I just highlighted and typed it in there and pressed enter. That's how you name ranges. Now on the column E, we have another if statement. This time it's looking at the bonus column. It says if bonus is 0, more effort is needed. Now after the comma, if you want to put text in an if statement, you have to put it inside quotes like that, double quotes, which on the keyboard is shift and number 2 in the UK keyboard, not 2 single quotes because that won't work. Still separating a comma for the false. In this case, if it's false, that means I have got a bonus, so you're going to say well done, which is what this one does in cell E3. They've got a bonus in C3, says well done in E3. So if I change this figure in the top one to 22,000, so that will now do the true part, and it says well done, and you get your £2,200 bonus. So that's how that one works. Now over on the right, you've got another if statement with no overtime or overtime, and this one is not using name ranges, it's just using cell references. So the if statement says if H2 is less than or equal to, that's what that means, less than or equal to 8, there's your comma, that's the test. In quotes, because you want text, you're going to say no overtime. Close your quotes, comma, and then if that is false, you're going to say overtime. So basically, if they've done more than 8 hours, they're going to get overtime. So the first one says no overtime, no overtime, no overtime, and then that one says overtime because they did 9 hours. Now, if I just insert a couple of spaces here, and let's recreate this if statement in this cell there. So I'll get it in the same sort of line. So it's equals if, open the bracket. So once you open the bracket, the little help comes up. So the bold bit is where you're at. And it's wanting to know what the logical test is. So our test is sales, if sales is greater than 21,000. No pound, no comma, no full stop. That's the test. Now when I do a comma, you can see the little help moves across to the true bit. What do you want to do if it's true? I want to look at sales and times it by 10%, and you can type 10% like that. Comma, if it's false, they're not getting anything, so 0, and then you can close the bracket and click the tick, and then that filled it down, spilled it down for you because it sees these named ranges. And then these need to be formatted into pounds like so. Now if I do the next one, which is this one, so it's equals if, open the bracket, I'll use this cell as a test. So if that is equal to 0, comma, that means I haven't got a bonus, open quote, so I did shift and number 2 on the keyboard, and you want to say more effort needed, close your quotes, comma, and then open quotes for the false bit, and this time you're going to say well done, close quotes, close bracket, just check everything, it's probably best to check it up on the formula bar. Click the tick and then pull that down. So now this is the same as these two columns. Now if I go on to the next sheet, nested if or ifs, what you've got in this example, if I click on fail, you've got a nested if, and I've got the @ sign in there so it didn't spill down. Now you can see how cluttered a nested if would be. So basically you have a test, what to do if it's true, and then instead of a false you have another test, what to do if it's true, and so on. So this basically says, so I've named these figures score. So this basically says if the score is greater than 98, give them an A grade. Right? If it's greater than 90, give them a B. Greater than 75, give them a C. All the way along to if it's greater than 50, give them an E. And then finally you get a fail, that's the false. And for every open bracket you do on that if, you have to close them at the end. So there's 5 open brackets, so there's 5 closed brackets. So that's how you would do a nested if. But the new feature that came out a few years back is ifs, where you can just do it like this. It's slightly tidier. If D3 is 90, give them an A. If D3 is 80, give them a B. If D3 is 70, give them a C, etc., etc., and then pull that down. So that's just a quick look at a nested if against ifs. It's up to you which one you want to use. And what I want to do now is just have a little practice at doing a basic if on these two examples. So in this example, we want an if statement to tell us whether the viewing figures have increased in 2021 over 2020. So equals if, open bracket. So if that is greater than that, comma, we want it to say increase. Close quotes, comma, open quotes, otherwise it's a decrease. Now this is not an accurate example because obviously if it's the same you want it to pick that up as well, but that's for a different session. So we just want it to be doing increase or decrease just to practice doing the basic if. And then we can pull that down, widen the column, just get rid of that. And then have a look at this one on the right. So this one is wanting to use named ranges. So I'm going to highlight these two columns, go to formulas, create from selection, top row, budget, actual, OK. That's a quick way of naming columns. So if I just highlight the figures, you can see it's called budget. You don't highlight the title, you just use the title to name this area. So now to use those names in this example, if I just get rid of this comment box. Right, so I'm going to do an if statement. So if actual is greater than budget, that's not good. So equals if, open brackets. Now you can put this in English because they're named. If actual is greater than budget, see it changes color because it recognizes that, comma, we are over budget. Close quotes, comma, or we are within budget. Close quotes, close bracket. Click the tick, and it spills it down for us because we've got named ranges. So that is quite a useful way of doing it with name ranges. Then you get the spill, and it's quite quick. You don't have to worry about double clicking it down or even dragging it down with the mouse. So I quite like using name ranges for that sort of reason. Now the next one is if and now I'm just going to delete this top one off. Delete the columns and rows, in fact. So let's have a look at this. So you've got within range and within range. So we've got if and if or. So what does the and function do first of all? So if I just do the and on its own, let me get rid of this comment box. Equals and, open bracket. if that is greater than 100, comma, and that is greater than 100, those are the arguments. You can have many arguments. So that's going to say false. Now if I change one of those to 101, it still says false, because in an AND statement everything has to be true. So now they're both over 100, so it's coming up with true. That's what the AND function does. Now the OR function, which is the next one I'm going to do, equals OR, open bracket. That one is greater than 100, comma, or that one is greater than 100. So in this case, because one of them is greater than 100, it's coming up with true, because only one of the arguments needs to be true for the OR to trigger the true option, whereas the AND function, they both need to be true. If I delete these two off and go through doing an if with it, so if I now put the if statement on it, I can have some text at the end. I'll put this back to let's just delete these off to a reasonable figure. So if I come down here and go equals if, open bracket, and then AND, open bracket, so you do the AND bit first. So if that is greater than 100, comma, and that is greater than 100, close the AND bracket, and you're back to the if, and you're still on the test, so all that is a test. Then you do a comma, and now it's a true bit of the if statement. So if that's all true, if both of those are true, it's within range. Close quotes, comma, or it's out of range. And then close bracket. So it's within range. If I put one of those down, it's out of range. Now the same principle equals if, open bracket, or, open bracket, and you do the or first. So if that is greater than 100, comma, or that is greater than 100, close the or bracket, comma, within range, close quotes, comma, open quotes again, out of range, close bracket. So that should say within range, because that one is doing the true bit. Now this example over here, you've got another one. This is like a common example, to be honest. So this is like a check sheet. You've got, these could be formulas in themselves. They all need to be 0, because obviously it says if A3 is 0, so it's balanced, and B3 is 0 and C3 is 0, all three sheets is balanced, then that's going to be okay to close the file. But in this case, that one isn't, so it's saying check file. Same principle. And if I put that to 0, now it says close file. Now one last little thing. Let's have a go at doing this little exercise. Two little examples. So this is if this is account type A and they've spent more than £2,000, you want this to say letter to MD. So this is if and again. So equals if, open bracket, and open bracket. So if that equals, in quotes because it's text, A, comma, and that is greater than £2,000, close the bracket, comma, and now if that's true, so if both of those are true, you want that to be a letter to MD. Or if it's not true, standard letter. Close the quotes, close the bracket, click the tick, pull it down. There you go. Now this one, if it's a new customer, so they're going to get 15% discount if it's a new customer, equals yes, and the offer is set to yes. So that's that one there. Look. Now again, you could use names here, but I'm just going to do it without names. So we'll go equals if open and then and open. So if that equals yes, and that has to go in quotes because it's not a name, comma, and that equals yes. Oops. So that's the test. Close the bracket. So if that's true, they're getting a 15% discount on that. So it's going to be comma that times 15%, comma 0, close bracket. Let's tick that. Make it into pounds. So that's the discount because they are a new customer and the offer is on yes. If I pull that down, you can see that, and this is just a formula then to just take one from the other. H12 minus I12. So that's a couple of examples of the if statement and if and, or with the and the or statement. So hopefully I hope you've enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next one.